Why do we have to wear sunscreen? Most of us think of the sun as a friend. It helps the plant grow, keeps us warm, and who does like to lie a bit on a sunny day? But for all of these good qualities, the sun can also be harmful in large amount. That's why I invented sunscreen. The purpose of sunscreen is to shield the body from the sun's ultraviolet rays, which have several harmful effects including sunburn, aging, and skin cancer promotion. These rays are separated by different wavelengths into types such as UVA and UVB, which exert varied effects in skin due to the observed patterns of chromophores, the part of molecules responsible for their color. The primary two chromophores are hemoglobin, found in our red blood cells, and melanin, which give our skin its pigment. We know that UVB rays cause the skin to burn. The role of UVA rays is less well understood and appear to have two effects in our tanning response, causing allergies and aging. So how does the screen protect us from these rays? There are two basic types of sunscreens, physical and chemical blocks. Physical blocker like zinc oxide or titanium dioxide reflect the sun rays by acting as a physical barrier. If you syntonize noise is covering white, we know that it looks like that. The same ingredients are primary components of diaper cream, both also create this physical barrier. Historically, they have always been used to apply and work with physical on a skin, but new formulations have made it less of an issue. Chemical blockers, on the other hand, absorb the sun's rays. They deteriorate more quickly than physical sunscreen because of their ability to absorb the sun emissions. Generally, these are more transparent while of the skin, but some people develop allergic reactions to some of chemicals. Regardless type of sunscreen, all are subject to testing determine their sunburn protection factors, or SPF. This is essentially a measure of the protection the sunscreen will provide from UVB rays before one begins to burn. But even if you don't burn, you still need to use the sunscreen because unless you live in a cave, you're not even the effective of sun. It is treated the dark-skinned people and those who tend to have more built-in protection from sunburns, but they are still vulnerable to effective UVA. Children under the age of 6 months, on the other hand, should have almost no sun exposure, as the protective mechanisms are not fully functioning. Their skin is more likely to absorb any sunscreen that is applied. Wearing sunscreen helps protection absorb develops all three types of skin cancer: basal cell carcinoma, squamous cell carcinoma, and melanoma. On a daily basis, the DNA in your cells developing mutations and errors that are generally handled by machinery with your cells. But ultraviolet rays from the sun lead to mutation that the cell may not be able to overcome, leading to uncontrolled growth and eventually skin cancer. The scariest thing about this is that usually you can't even see it happening until it's too late. But if this concrete risk your health and not enough to convince you to sunscreen, there are accelerations as well. Along with cigarette smoking, sun damage is the leading cause of premature aging. For aging from chronic sun exposure is to loss of elasticity in the skin. In other words, making it look saggy. Take a look at this truck driver whose left side chronically exposed to the sun, and notice the difference. This is the important point. Car windows block UVE and the burn rays, but not UVA, the aging rate. It is recommended to use sunscreen daily, but you should pay special attention before prolonged sun exposure or when at the beach or among snow, since the reflective of water and ice amplify the sun's rays. For these cases, apply about hour 15 to 30 minutes before you go out and once again after you get outside. After that, you should apply that every 2 or 3 hours, especially after swimming or sweating. By the way, you should wear protective clothing with ultraviolet protection factor or UPS. Staying in shade areas such as under trees or umbrella and avoid the sun at the peak areas 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. And what's the best kind of sunscreen? Everyone will have their preference, but looks like following things: broad spectrum, SPF of less than 30, and water resistance. A light moisturizer with SPF 30 should be good for daily use. Take a note if you decide to use a spray. They several coats to effectively cover your skin, like painting a wall with a spray cancer versus spurs. So enjoy the sun, but enjoy it with the sunscreen. One more with a slow version. Most of us think of the sun as our friend. It helps the plants grow, keeps us warm, and who doesn't love to lie on the beach on a sunny day? But for all of these good qualities, the sun can also be harmful in large amounts. That's why I invented the sunscreen. The purpose of sunscreen is to shield the body from the sun's ultraviolet rays, which have several harmful effects including sunburn, aging, and skin cancer promotion. These rays are separated by different wavelengths into types such as UVA and UVB, which exert a variety of effects in the skin due to the absorbing pattern of chromophores, the part of the molecules responsible for their color. The primary two chromophores are hemoglobin, found in our red blood cells, and melanin, which gave our skin its pigment. We know that UVB rays cause the skin to burn. The role of UVA ray is less well understood and appear to have any effects in our tanning response, carcinogenesis, and aging. So how does a sunscreen protect us from these rays? There are two basic types of sunscreen, physical and chemical blockers. Physical blockers like zinc oxide or titanium dioxide reflect the sun rays by acting as a physical barrier. If you've seen light guard with the noses covering white, then you know that looks like that. The same ingredients are primary components of diaper creams, where the goal is also to create a physical barrier. Historically, they haven't always been easy to apply and work spectacular visual on the skin, but new formulations have made this less of an issue. Chemical blockers, on the other hand, absorb the sun's sunscreens. They deteriorate more quickly than physical sunscreen because their ability to absorb the sun diminishes. Generally, they are somewhat transparent when rubbed the skin, but some people developed allergic reactions to some of the chemicals. Regardless of type of sunscreen, all are subject to testing to determine their sunburn protection factor, or SPS. This is essentially a measure of the protection that a sunscreen will provide from UVB rays before one begins to burn. But even if it don't burn, you still need to use the sunscreen, because unless you live in a cave, you're not able to effect of the sun. It is true that dark-skinned people and those who tan easily have more built-in protection from sunburns, but they are still vulnerable to the effect of UVA. Children under the age of 6 months, on the other hand, should have almost no sun exposure, as their protective mechanisms are not fully functioning and their skin is more likely to absorb any sunscreen that is applied. Wearing the sunscreen helps protect against the development of all three types of skin cancer: basal cell carcinoma, squamous cell carcinoma, and melanoma. On a daily basis, the DNA in your cells is developing mutations and errors that are generally handled by machinery with your cells. But ultraviolet rays from the sun lead to mutations that the cell may not be able to overcome, leading to uncontrolled growth and eventually skin cancer. The scary thing about this is that usually you can't even see it happening until it's too late. But if these concrete threats to your health are not enough to convince you to use sunscreen, there are aesthetic reasons as well. Along with cigarette smoking, sun damage is the leading cause of premature aging. Further aging from chronic sun exposure leads to loss of elasticity in the skin. In other words, making it look saggy. Take a look at this truck driver whose left side is chronically exposed to the sun, and notice the difference. This is the important point. Car windows block UVB and burn rays, but not UVA, the aging ray. It is recommended to use sunscreen daily, but you should pay specialized attention before prolonged sun exposure, or when at the beach, or among snow. since the reflectivity of the water and ice amplify the sun's rays. For these cases, applying about the hours 15 to 30 minutes before you go out, and once again soon after you get outside. After that, you should apply this every 2 to 3 hours, especially after swimming or sweating. Otherwise, you should wear protective clothing with ultraviolet protection factor, or UPF. Stay in shaded areas such as under trees or an umbrella, and avoid the sun at the peak hours of 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. And what's the best kind of sunscreen? Everyone will have their preference, but look for the following things: broad spectra, SPF of at least 30, and water resistance. A light moisturizer with SPF 30 should be good for daily use. Take if you decide to use a spray. There are techniques to effectively cover your skin, like painting a wall with a spray can versus a patch brush. So, enjoy the sun, but enjoy with the sunscreen.